Traditional theologians would say that Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because of homosexuality, but we know that not to be true. We know that even before the angels got to Sodom and Gomorrah in that story, that God had already decided that Sodom and Gomorrah were full of haughty people, they were inhospitable, and that God was going to wipe them off the face of the earth. We know that because it says so. And Abraham, who was concerned about this, goes to God and says, okay, if I can find 100 righteous people, will you save? And God scratches God's head and says, yeah, of course I will. And so he gets on a roll and starts bartering with God about how many righteous people they might find, and eventually gets God down to agree that if we could find just 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, then it will be saved. And of course he's concerned about Lot and his family who are already there. And so, after this whole conversation, with God describing what's wrong with Sodom and Gomorrah, it's got nothing to do, God does not say homosexuality. The angels get to Sodom and Gomorrah. In their time, everything within the city gates was safe, everything outside the city gates was not safe. And so the angels come in and they take their place at the city square. Lot comes out, offers them hospitality. It was the biggest law of Judaic religion, offer hospitality to strangers. We see it over and over again. We see it in the New Testament. And the angels say no, and Lot insists and said, no, you must come into my house. That's what I'm supposed to do religiously. Come on in, be protected. So they go into the house. And then it says, all the men of the city descended upon Lot's house that night. Well, first of all, I have not yet met or been to a place where all the men of the city are by nature homosexual. So we know that there were some heterosexuals in this group. So they come down to Lot's house, they're banging on the door, let those angels out so that we might know them, which implies that they want to have sex with them. Lot says, no, we're not going to let you do that. Eventually the angels get involved. But before the angels get involved, Lot says, look, don't have these men, but you can have my daughters. They've not been touched by any man, so and we understand that women had no value in society; they were considered property, and so he offers them his daughters. The angels say, we've had enough, and tells Lot and his family to get out. They get out. Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed. Lot's wife is told not to turn back. She turns back. She gets turned into a pillar of salt. And then we usually end the story, but the story does continue. And the story continues that the two daughters now, who are just with Lot on his own, know that they only have value when they're attached to a man and when they're procreating, when they're having children. And so one by one, they get their father drunk, they sleep with him, and they bear children. So incest is fine. That's the implication. We say, Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed because of homosexuality, but these men were not in love with these angels. These men raped these angels, or intended to. And I would say that in any civilized civilization, we would condemn rape, whether it's same-gender rape or opposite-gender rape. But the reality is that Sodom and Gomorrah was doomed for destroyed long before the angels came. This was just another example of inhospitality. Ezekiel says that Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because of inhospitality. And then in Matthew, Jesus says, your punishment will be worse than that of your sister Sodom, who was destroyed because of inhospitality. He never said it was destroyed because of homosexuality. But we continue that myth, and we add weight to the myth by this piece of the story where the two angels were going to be gang raped by a group of men. Had nothing to do with homosexuality, or certainly not about homosexual love. There was certainly homosexual activity about to happen, but predominantly by those who were by nature heterosexual.